Good morning, everybody, and welcome on this live safari. As you can see, we're on foot, and my name is Scott. I'm teamed up with Herbie, who you can see ahead of us. He is an expert tracker, and he's also carrying a rifle for safety purposes in case we get ourselves into trouble. Of course, that's not our plan, and VM is on camera. There's going to be a beautiful sunrise shortly. You can see a bit of a golden hue off to the east, and we are marching straight towards the area where Tundi, a female leopard, was seen late yesterday evening moving with her young little cub. And we've got a feeling that there's two reasons why she would have moved quite far away from the area where she's been denning. A, she bumped into a young male leopard yesterday afternoon, so maybe she thought it would be good to move the cub away from that young male leopard. Or possibly there was lions in the area, so that's another area. Yesterday morning, maybe she thought to move her cub away from any possible threats. There's actually three options, because that was the second. And the third option is that she may have made a kill that she was taking her cub to. And it's something that we haven't really had to deal with just yet. We've noticed that she's been taking her kills back to the cub. But now that the cub's growing, and if she's made a bigger kill, she may in fact rather move the cub to the kill as opposed to the kill to the cub. So once we do get into that area, we're going to be moving very slowly, very cautiously, because of course she may be a little bit protective over her youngster. Now, even though Steve isn't on bushwalk, he loves being out the vehicle, so why don't you go and see what he's getting up to? I'm told he's enjoying the sunrise.
Good morning and a very warm welcome to you on another episode of Safari Live. My name is Steve Falconbridge, and I'm joined by Seb Rombi on camera. He is just busy sorting out the drone to give you a marvelous scening of what we have behind us here. So we have a beautiful day today of 22 degrees Celsius and 71 degrees Fahrenheit. And one of the things that a lot of people come out here for, it's not just the animals, it's not to see the leopards and the lions and the cats, it's to see these unbroken, endless vistas of the savanna biome. And we are out this morning. Seb is going to be getting the drone up for you in a moment to get a beautiful look at where we are. It is a beautiful, beautiful morning. Objects for this morning, and we're going to see if we can find any activity of where Sana was last night. Maybe you can. I know Noel's going to be going down south towards Chitwa Dam. We have Scotty D on walk. So we've got all sorts of activity coming from Djuma. And there goes the drone. The wonderful sound as it takes off next to me. And this is absolutely beautiful. Now have a look at that. Unbroken vistas, folks, for as far as the eye can see. This is one of the most amazing parts of my job, is getting to wake up every morning and watch the sunrise. How high are you now, Seb?
How high? 20 meters.
Apparently only 20 meters high at the moment. It looks far higher than that. But isn't that a spectacular view, folks?
Sorry, 100 meters high.
100 meters. He is busy concentrating. We don't want him to crash this wonderful drone. Amazing the bird's eye view we can get with these new tools and technology. Just a little blimp from the sky. You can see, I know James had the drone up yesterday, and from where we're standing it looks like there's quite a lot of grass cover, but I know from up there it's very obvious how little grass cover there actually is. More dominated by trees in these areas. But where we are standing is right below the seep line. Okay, folks, so that is the objective for our morning. We're going to head a little bit south, see if we can find any tracks of the little prince, and who knows whatever else. Going to be following ecology, and on that note, we go across to Noel, who I believe is already on her way south. See what she has for you.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. We are sitting here. We had some beautiful colors that were popping through, but the clouds have come across a little bit, so we're just left with that nice little salmon pink and a little bit of orange. I am Noelle, and on camera I have Davi. Good morning, Davi. And we are on a mission to go find Hasana. So we're over here at Twin Dams, and we're slowly going to be making our way over towards Chitwa. It's a beautiful, cool morning. I believe it's about 22 Celsius, which is about 72 Fahrenheit. So it's a wonderful morning to try and find some cats. I'm just going to take a little spider web away from the lens there. I hope everyone's having a wonderful morning or evening or middle of the day, wherever you happen to be. Now, I know that my other colleagues are off looking for various different cat species as well, or possibly some small things and some other large things. I was also tracking elephants on the way down here, but it looks like they've popped over into Little Gowrie. So as our sunrise is sort of being pushed away by the clouds, we are going to start heading on, and I haven't had a chance to check the back side of Twin Dams wall, so I think we'll do that. We'll go across the dam wall itself and see if anything is lurking around, and maybe we get something at the tiny little pans here. This is also where we were getting those really great views of the common waxbills. That's the word I was looking for. So I'm hoping maybe they're already out and about, because common waxbills we actually don't see that much. Tiny, tiny little birds, little red around the eye. We get the blue waxbills often. I was just chatting with Davi about one of the other places I used to work at, and my favorite waxbill, that side, is a black-cheeked waxbill. And I think when we come across here, I might have to show you all these birds, because now I'm nattering on about birds, and all of you are probably going, but what do they look like, Noelle? So let's just get up here so we can have a quick little scan and a quick little look around. Just make sure nothing is lurking about. And I will fetch out my trusty bird book and give you all a gander. Okay. Oops, that's the wrong one. So this is the little common waxbill here. That beautiful red around the face that we talked about. And then, sorry, it's the black-faced waxbill now, not the black-cheeked that we would find up in the other places. Gorgeous. And then if we come up here, the violet-eared waxbill is also very, very stunning. Used to see that up in the Northwest Province quite a bit. And then the one we most commonly see is this little guy, a little blue waxbill. And they're probably 4 centimeters high. 12 centimeters, says the book. I'm very bad with math. So about this big. They're not very big at all. Teeny tiny, and they build these tiny little nests inside of thorn trees, all with little stalks of grass and up inside so that the snakes can't get in. And what they like is they like the common waxbills I've been seeing like this tall grass here, and they move in and out of these trees and then come down to the water and then flit around in the grass there. But I'm not seeing them quite yet this morning. So I think let's carry on and see what we can find. Just checking down in here. Thanks, Glenn. I'm glad you like my hat, and I'm glad you're joining us this morning. My bush hat, my rogue hat. All right, now my friend Scott is out on bushwalk this morning. It's his turn for bushwalk. So I think let's head on over to him and see what he's up to. Maybe he's got something big, maybe he's got something small, or maybe he has a story he wants to tell you.
Well, we don't have anything big just yet, but we do have some tracks of a very big animal. There's a herd of elephants that move through this area. You can see where they've been kind of using their foot to scrape the road. Look here how this foot started over here and then scraped forward, and you'll probably find they were using the sand here that they've kicked up with their foot for dust bathing. I can see a few areas where it looks like they've used their trunk, like over here. Whoop. To lift up some sand and throw it all over their body. And we did hear some audio of elephants ahead of us, so we've got a feeling they're not too far from us. They could make our lives a little bit tricky as we try and track down Tundi and her cub. So we're getting closer to that area. Exciting stuff. We can see the tracks of the female leopard and her young cub walking down this road. Not very easy to see at the moment, but they are here. James found them somewhere in this area yesterday evening, so these tracks aren't really hugely useful to us, but just nice to look at and nice to compare the size of the tiny little cub's tracks to her mom's. And interestingly, even though the cub is not nearly half the size as her mother, her footprints just about are. Cookie, you would like to know if the animals are more active in the morning or the evening, and it really does depend on the individual animal. Let's take Tundi and her cub, for example. There's a strong chance that they could be on a kill now, so they're not going to be doing too much other than nibbling on their snacks. At least those are our predictions. So other mornings she might be a lot more active. But yes, as a general rule, the early mornings and late evenings are when the animals are most active, especially at this time of the year, because the hot summer days can be quite overwhelming, and a lot of the animals like to try and seek refuge when they're doing that. Now, some of you would have noticed I forgot two of my tools this morning. I was so excited to head out, so I forgot my binoculars as well as my ash bag. So I've collected a kind of ash bag substitute to test the wind. These are little pellets from a scrub hare poop, and because they've got such a good digestion system, they break down whatever they feed on into very, very fine matter. And when I break it up like that, you can see it shows that there's not much of a breeze this morning. And this is going to be very important if and when we do come across these elephants that we heard up ahead of us, because it'll help us to make sure that they don't pick up our scent. Provided elephants don't pick up your scent, it's quite easy to sneak around them. They don't have the best eyesight. And I haven't spent time with elephants on foot on weeks, so really looking forward to those prospects. It's incredibly exciting, especially when it's a breeding herd, and it seems like with all these tracks it will in fact be a breeding herd of elephants. We need to be extra cautious. Probably I treat them with the most respect out of all the animals that we could encounter on foot, because female elephants with youngsters can be very, very protective. So we're going to continue snooping about here. Happy that Noelle got you some good visuals of her favorite wax bull. Or it could have just been in the book, I guess. I'm not too sure whether she showed you in the book or showed you in the flesh. Okay. Well, good news. You've met Noelle and Steve so far this morning, but we also do have a crew operating up in the Masai Mara in Kenya, and I'm told that Jamie is enjoying a beautiful sunset out there to the north of us, so why don't you go and see what's happening.
We are out in the Mara where the sun is just starting to light up the horizon. Another spectacular morning, misty morning, clouds, mist hovering over the river along with a hot air balloon. So a really stunning start to our morning out here in the Masai Mara. Not that any morning in Africa is ever particularly dull, but a good morning to all of you and welcome to the Mara portion of the Sunrise Safari. My name is Jamie, and this morning Craig is on camera with me. So I started off my morning while I was walking out of my tent listening here. I noticed some antelope that was staring intently downhill in the direction of where I heard those lions roar. But I'm starting to think maybe they're just staring at other antelope, which is very likely. Antelope have very good eyesight, or at least eyesight geared towards picking up movement, which makes sense. It's the only way that they're going to survive in a land that has grass that often grows up to 2 meters tall. So they might have just picked up on the movement of the topi and wanted to identify what they were. Then we're all galloping because we can. The antelope with the highest turn of speed, they are the fastest, and at the same time a great deal of stamina as well. Sloping backs like that, almost invariably in the mammal world out here, means that the animal concerned has plenty of stamina. It's a very energy efficient stride. But of course topi are running around a lot at the moment because we're coming up to breeding season. Yesterday on the Sunrise Safari we had quite an intense topi fight with 2 males slipping and sliding all over the place, much like us while we drive here at any one point in time. I was really excited this morning. I was going to tell you it hadn't rained and the roads were going to be dry and we could actually move off the main roads and into parts of the reserve we haven't been able to drive for a while. But it did rain last night, and everything's still soaking, including that tiny little topi. who's just starting to get its black patches. Okay, the lions were roaring from here. Some of them sounded higher up on top of the mountain. Is that it? No, it's not a lion. Okay, let's go and see what we can find. Ryder, you want to see lions today. I want to see lions too. I can almost, we've got to be careful here, I can almost guarantee lions. I've got the entire place to myself at the moment. Rolf is busy. He's actually, I think, on that balloon at the present moment. So I've got this entire section. Marsh Breakaways, Mara River, Olololo Pride, and on the other side, potentially, Owinyo Pride, or Little Sausages. But I haven't seen the Little Sausages in quite a while. I tried to find them yesterday and nearly got stuck as a result. So I decided that it was probably not my best plan. Even though I am desperate to see them, it's really difficult at the moment because no one's looking in that area. There's not much else to look at there. I don't know where they've gone. I'm sure, if I picture where I was when I heard those roars, I'm sure they must be coming down this section. I just know how mushy it's going to be. Okay, I'm going to go off in search of our lions and other exciting things, because it's not all about the lions this morning. And speaking of it not being all about the lions, Noelle has been out on the search and she's ended up finding Scott's Ellies.
Morning, Jamie. I found some Ellies, part of the Ellies that we've been tracking. I'm hoping Scott manages to find some of his own Ellies. This little guy here is busy eating a very, very thorny tree. And as you know, elephants don't mind the thorns. They rip them off. There's some nice thick skin around their trunk. Their trunk has tens of thousands of sets of muscles inside of it. As you can see him busy twirling it about there. And then they rip it off and put it in their mouths and they just grind it up with their teeth. They've got this little groove on the top of their teeth that helps to wear everything down. And so the teeth structure that they have, the tooth structure that they have, I think that's more correct grammar, excuse me. The two tush are your two front teeth, your incisors, and then they've got two very large molars, top and bottom, on either side of their mouths. Now what's interesting about their molar system is, for us, when we get our molars, then there they are. But for elephants, they get 6 sets of those molars throughout their life, and they don't pop up from bottom to top. They pop from inside to outside like a conveyor belt. So sometimes it's one full molar on the top or bottom on either side, and sometimes it's 1.5 because new molars come through and sort of push them out. And as they're being pushed out, they've been worn down quite a bit, and then the new ones that come through have that beautiful ridge that hasn't been worn down. Now he's moved over to a combretum tree. He's having a variety of snacks today. And that's what elephants are very good at. When they're under their carrying capacity and they're in the numbers they should be in, they move from tree to tree and from plant to plant and from grass to grass, and they eat, but they don't devour the whole thing. When there's too many of them in an area, then that's when they devour the whole thing, and it turns into a little bit of a problem, or a big problem, depending on where you are. Now let's see if we can hear, he's making lots of noise now, let's see if we can hear him as well as the bird calls from the background. Octo, good question. You're wondering how sensitive is an elephant's trunk. The tip, the two little finger-like apparatuses at the tip are very, very sensitive. They can feel and pick up tiny little fruits and little rocks and help pick off certain leaves off of trees. And then obviously the smelling capability through the trunk is very sensitive as well. So I believe you could hear some of the noises around, but it was a little bit faint. If he starts making big cracking noises, I'll go quiet again. We'll see if we can hear him doing that. So he's a young bull that I think is trailing behind this breeding herd that we've been tracking, but I don't think he's part of the breeding herd anymore. I think he's just about at the age where he's been asked to sort of move on. His testosterone levels have become too much, and the females are saying, nope, you are a nuisance, you mustn't be here anymore. And so he'll be on his own a little bit now, or he might befriend a larger bull who will help teach him about being a big elephant. There, that was a good branch sound. All right, now while we're sitting here with this ever so relaxing young male elephant, my friend Steve-O is of course off his vehicle. He loves being off his vehicle, and I believe he has some tracks for you, so let's head on over to him.
Yes, I have. Thank you very much, Noel. Glad that you found a beautiful elephant bull this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, I got excited for a moment, but there's always excitement when we see tracks. And those of you who were watching the show last night will notice that I got very excited about honey badger tracks. And now we have a very similar animal, but one that people get confused with. But please, folks, send through your questions and comments on hashtag Safari Live, or follow the YouTube stream. And now I've found tracks that often people will confuse, and it looks very similar to the honey badger, but they are very close together. Yesterday I was telling you the one animal we confused this with, very messy back pad, but very similar. But look at the distance between these tracks. They are very, very close together. And these are of the porcupine, of the little shuffling animal. And if I take a straight stick, it's not the straightest of sticks in the world, and I try to put it through 3, it doesn't go. Can you see that, Seb?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. There's kind of like an angle. Remember, honey badger, the stick will go through all 3 of them. It's quite a nice, easy way to identify them. But what you also look for in porcupine tracks, which you don't always see, and is often the determining factor between porcupine and honey badger, but we're not seeing it here, is the quill marks. And if I just draw these little lines like this, that's kind of like what you'll see following the porcupine. It is there, but it's very, very, very faint. So often if you find it like this, that's why I got excited. I didn't see the quill marks on the floor. But when you look at the tracks, how close they are together, remember the honey badger is moving at high speed. He will have a track here, and a track there, and a track there, all on one equal plane. So look for that, look for the messiness, see if you can join 3 tracks in a straight line, look for the quill marks. The porcupine, if I show you in the book here, Seb, there we go, very, very similar in the shape, except the back pad has got this extra piece over there. The honey badger misses this piece, and the porcupine has it. The claws are still there. The honey badger's claws are a little bit further forward, but the way that they move, picture the porcupine is this little sort of shuffling animal, with the honey badger runs like this, and he is badass, and he owns the world. Wonderful to be out and to read the morning newspaper. Those of you folks out there reading your Monday Star. Philip, what is my favorite animal to track? Well, I love tracking lions, I love tracking elephant, I love tracking leopard. It all depends. The thing about tracking an animal, for me, the thing that makes it my favorite is finding them. Leopards are hard to find. Lions are also hard to find. Elephants are a little bit easier to find, but it depends on how far away you are. Elephants are going to keep going all day. So if you find very, very fresh elephant tracks, I love trying to find them. Lion tracks, often we can find them because they don't go as far as elephants will do, but they are difficult, and there's such a challenge. And I've always in the past spent a lot of time tracking lions. Even when I wasn't very good, I would track them and track them and track them, and eventually when you find lions, it's like internal high fives, you know. Tracking leopards is a different story. Female leopards far easier to track than males. Males that just can go so very far. You could be lucky. I have found a few leopards in my life via tracking, but not as many as I have lion. So I do like following those guys. But then something I've also done before is I've tracked giraffe as well, which was for me really cool to find them, to go through the whole ins and outs of how they move. But we're going to continue on, see what we can find along this road. And on that note, we're going to go to my friend Noel, who has got my favorite animal to track.
Hello, we're still with our young elephant bull, and I have a few updates for you. So Hasana has been seen this morning. He's been seen inside of Chitwa Lodge. However, There are many, many guests who are sleeping in this morning in the lodge, so we are very limited to where we can go around there. So there's a little spot on the dam wall, well, just below the dam wall where we can go, and then we're going to have to move around and come towards the western side and hope that Hosanna has moved out of the lodge itself and is not near any of the buildings. And we're going to pretty much just circle around there as much as we can until they give us the go-ahead that we can access the dam properly, because it's still very early here. It's only about 6 o'clock, just before 6 o'clock, so those guests are definitely having a nice sleep in. So I think what we'll do is we'll stick with our little elephant bull for a while longer and give Hosanna some time to meander around and come out so that we can view him. Elephants, elephants, elephants. I love elephants. Steve and I worked together in Botswana for a while, and the place where we were working had, oh my goodness, herd upon herd upon herd of elephants. And we used to sit up on this little dolomite dike, this outcropping. And basically what happens, sorry Davi, I'm going to need to use my hands. So the Earth's crust is like this, and sometimes when you get a lot of magma that's moving underneath the Earth like this, it creates a lot of buildup and pressure. And instead of popping out of a volcano, this part where the Earth's crust is will just split a little bit. And then because it splits just a little bit, that magma will come up like this, and then it cools down very quickly. And then everything erodes around it, and it creates a little dolomite dike. So sometimes they're quite tall and sometimes they're quite little. It depends. So anyway, we used to go and sit on top of this dolomite dike, and we would sit there and we would watch elephants like this feeding and sort of below your feet. And sometimes it was several meters down, and sometimes it wasn't that far. And then the sun would set, and there's a little river there. Absolutely stunning. I actually can't remember the name of the river. Steve will remember the name of the river. But just after Botswana gained independence, that river is where they found diamond deposits. And so one of the reasons why Botswana is so stable and prosperous is because of the diamonds that were found that side after independence. And then also just the conservation values behind the Khamas, behind the president and now his grandson, are very ethical and straightforward and no nonsense. And so Botswana is doing quite well. Although, speaking of Botswana, and we were talking about droughts yesterday, Botswana is having a really hard time, especially in the southern part, with droughts. And that drought's also affected part of us. We've got the drought that's happening in Cape Town. We've got the drought from Cape Town that's moved over sort of into the Eastern Cape area. And then we're completely on the opposite side of the country and dealing with a drier than normal period. But we're not as bad as Cape Town or Eastern Cape at the moment. And we're definitely not as bad as Gaborone or around in that area. They're having a bit of trouble. Okay, we're going to go through this dip just in front, which can sometimes mean a little bit of funny signal. More than welcome to stick with us. And then we're going to come around and we'll hit the airstrip a little bit. And then we'll go around to Hosanna's haunt. And no, he's not a ghost. Oh, I've come undone. Oh my goodness. Sorry, Bex. All right, I'm back in. So, Bex, I believe, sorry I came undone there. I believe that you would like me to go over to Stevovo. Stevo, let's go to you and see what's happening on your side.
Good morning, everybody. We have got some birds in the tree here. We just saw a newly fledged fork-tailed drongo. We're trying to see if we can find it again. We've also got some bearded woodpeckers, a long-billed crombeck calling, but it was a very, very sort of downy-looking, fluffy-looking fork-tailed drongo. It wasn't very black in color. Oh, I'm not sure. Definitely the parents are around, so the fork-tailed drongo is part of the flycatcher family. There goes the woodpecker. Oh, just forward. Seb at eye level there. Directly back. Straight forward. Left. It's right in there. Oh, it's very difficult. Yeah, up. There we go. Here we go, folks. There looks like a female bearded woodpecker. Yes, you see that black on the head and that black beard stripe? I think it's a bearded. You can confuse the female bearded for the golden tail female. The easiest thing to catch. There we go. But right, Seb? Right? There we go. Let's have a look. I wonder if any of you can get a screenshot on that. I actually think that is a golden tailed female, now that I'm looking. Beautiful bird. No, that is a bearded. That is a bearded woodpecker. You can see by that very thick beard stripe, and if you measure the size of the beak is actually longer than the head itself. But it is easy to confuse the two. The bearded is a lot bigger than the golden tail, but that individual is running around or climbing around in that tree with what we call zygodactyl feet, which enables it to sit on the tree and just hold on, cling like that. And then the tail is very, very stiff and very rigid, allows him to hold on there with the tail down, and allows him that tripod motion of headbutting the tree. Let me just quickly show you a photo of the golden tail versus the bearded, and you'll see the difference between them. It's quite easy to identify size wise. Bearded woodpecker. Okay, so there's the male. You can hear the tapping in the background. There's the male. And there's the female with that very characteristic sort of beard stripe down on the chin there. Golden tail has got a similar sort of feel to it. Let me just find it for you. Golden tail, where are you? Next page. And it's easy to confuse, but the female does have a little bit more. Where is it? Sorry. Let me just get. She's got a bit of red on the back of the head. And I don't know if you can see the beak there. The beak is very, very small in comparison. Sorry. Okay, so that is there we go. There's a picture of the beak. The beak is very small in comparison to the head. Wonderful to see the bearded woodpeckers. They're not calling, but they are hole nesters. They create the cavities in dead trees. Octo asks, what's the difference between a beak and a bill? They are essentially the same thing. Like I call these fingers and I call them digits. It's the same sort of thing. The beak and the bill, it really depends on how you'd like to word that. That is it. And the beak in birds is all they have. We have hands, they have beaks, and so their beaks serve the function of whatever feeding strategy they might have. And the woodpecker, very, very strong beak for smashing into the tree, for getting wood-boring insects and larvae out of the tree. And they are responsible for creating a huge amounts of holes and cavities for birds like the barbets, starlings, oxpeckers. There are so many birds out there that rely on cavities in dead trees or in broken limbs to do their thing. So we could almost call it an ecosystem engineer. So we're going to continue on here with our search for anything wild and wonderful. We do have the drone as well, as you know, and we're going to get some nice aerial views at some point. We're going to be going up to Jamie with something wonderful in the Mara.
Well, here's something wild and wonderful, but not something you might expect to see. And unfortunately, the effect is a little bit less pronounced than when we first saw it. But those steaming things are termite mounds. That gives you an idea of, first of all, how chilly it is in the morning. Second of all, how much moisture is in the air. And then thirdly, how warm termite mounds are. Now, I think, and I'm sure if you ask the Djuma crew, particularly the walk crew, to show you a termite mound, I think it's too warm in Djuma for them to feel any heat coming up out of the vents. But essentially a termite mound is a chimney. Underground, the termites are working furiously, whether they are mainly breaking down plant material, but there's a great deal of essentially decomposition happening below the ground. That's producing lots of heat. Obviously, it can't get too hot in the termite mound, so as a result, they have to build chimneys. And that's what these termite mounds are. A whole system of vents that the termites can open and close as they see fit to release the heat. And that's what we're seeing now. Now, in midwinter on Djuma, where it does get very cold, here it stays pretty temperate throughout the entire year. But in Djuma, when they do experience really cold winters, you can go and put your hand over the entrance to a termite mound and you can actually feel the heat there. And lots of animals utilize that. They'll go and lie on termite mounds. First of all, it's a nice viewpoint. But secondly, it's also just a nice warm patch for them. Now, when we're out here at night, we have we've been given the exceptional privilege of working with some seriously advanced technology, including FLIR thermal imaging. And that the termite mounds are probably the things that make our lives the most difficult when we're looking for animals, because we pick up their thermal signatures. And a termite mound at night in thermal imaging looks a lot like a lion. Now, Cheryl, you say, wow, it looks like a golden morning. It is. It's another gorgeous morning. I definitely can't complain about the scenic nature of the land on which we live. No sign of our lions, though. A golden lion on a golden morning would be quite convenient, but they haven't come out yet. I think they're in the forest somewhere. I'm sure they will. I'm going to leave the area and then come back a bit later, because they have been following something of a pattern. They've been going up into the mountains, they've been coming down every single morning, so hopefully that's what they do. This is the trickiest patch of road of the main roads here, because if you go over, you wind up in a bit of a ditch. So first thing I'm going to do, since I'm here, is I'm going to go and check on the hammerkorp nest. It's fascinating to see how they work on it sometimes, but not always. Now, in these sort of conditions, with this amount of mud, it is next to impossible for us to track something in the Mara. Fortunately, that is not a problem that our friends in Djuma share, and Scott is hot on the tracks of Thandi and her little one.
Yes, we've got far better conditions for tracking. Oh, there's a little spider web there. Let me remove that. And we've had a very successful morning up till now. We found the tracks of this female leopard and her cub. They've moved about half a mile from where she was seen yesterday evening. And sadly, she is heading towards our eastern boundary, which is something we have been concerned about. Before she kind of started camping out on Djuma, her territory used to kind of overlap into a neighboring property where she used to spend a lot of time, and that is where she is heading towards. Now, we have been following her tracks along this road up till this point, and we've just lost the tracks here somewhere. There's a few little game trails that veer off the road, like this one over here. So if you look down there, you can see there's a natural highway that runs off down here. So I'm going to be checking, along with Herbie, all of these little trails to see. Oh, yeah, we've got her. Herbie, she's here. I've just seen one little track on the ground here. It's going to be very difficult for you guys to see, but you might just be able to make out the back pad and 1, 2, 3, 4 toes. Not easy to see, but it's a good example of how animals like to use pathways. If not using one of the main highways like this road, they'll take one of the kind of secondary routes, which is this one over here. Good stuff, isn't that exciting? We're back on her trail. So what we did there is, rather than trying to follow every single footprint meticulously, we walked about 30 meters, 40 meters further down the road that she was heading on, because some of the substrate on the road can be very difficult to actually see tracks on. It's as if they're walking on cement. And once we established that she certainly wasn't on the road, we came back to the last track, and now we are back on the trail. And I must say that it's good news, because she's stopped heading straight east towards our eastern boundary, and she's now veering more to the south. Who knows, maybe she had a successful night hunting. She may have left the cubs stashed away somewhere and now gone back to collect it after a successful hunt. And who knows, maybe these footprints will lead us to not only her cub and a kill, well, not only her cub, but also a kill. I haven't tested the wind for a while, so I'm going to use one of my trusty scrub hair pellets, and it's blowing straight into my face, which means that it's actually hardly blowing, very still morning, so good to just keep track of that. And while we scour the earth and cautiously creep through this fairly thick vegetation, we're going to send you off to Steve, who's apparently also tracking something down.
Thanks, Scotty. Be careful there. Be very, very careful, folks. Now, I've come across a very, very cool track, and I was shown this by a very interesting tracker by the name of Robert Ndlovu, who works at Londolozi. Very nice gentleman. And if you didn't know what this was, it'd be very hard to understand what it is. But if you can clearly see over here, there's marks in the sand, and there's actually a little foot mark over there, and little lines over here, and then also over here there's some more lines. So this little sort of disturbance in the sand over here, and then there's no tracks coming in and out of this, and then it lifts off the ground, and then it over here again. So just by what I've said, you know that it's a bird, and it's a nocturnal bird, and a bird that sits in the sand. And if you have a look at my phone here, you'll see that the photo of a nightjar sitting in the sand. And what he's doing is exactly like that. His head is facing in this direction, his feet are underneath, and he's kind of, the nightjars like these open areas because they can get good visual of insects for prey. And he's turning left and right here, just shuffling on his feet. And this at the back here, can you see the Seb? This at the back here is where his tail is. If you look in the picture again, the front of his body and then his tail. So he has the front of his body as he's shifting, and there's the back of the tail as he shifts. And then as he flies up, hawks up to catch an insect, he lands again. So it's very easy to identify this by the fact that there's no tracks coming in and out. And right over there is his foot. Very interesting little track. Nightjars have got a very interesting toe. They've got this little comb on their foot which allows them to comb their whiskers, their bristles, rictal bristles they call it. And in a nightjar, when it's flying, opens its mouth really, really wide, similar to that of a whale, and the whiskers help it to navigate and to sort of feel where the food is, and they just swallow all the insect in their path. So that is a very cool little track. Nice to come across it. Not as exciting as leopard tracks, but to me, the little beautiful tracks out there are always very, very exciting. Okay, please, folks, send your questions through in comments. We'd love to answer them. Love to interact with you people out there in the wide world. Seb and I on our own little mission. Was that hiss or kiss, Bex? Kiss. Okay. Hiss asks, are there any birds that are dangerous to humans? Well, they don't want to be dangerous, and the only time an animal is dangerous is if they are confronted or they have babies. And I know ostriches can be quite aggressive. You can even log an ostrich encounter on foot in your dangerous game logbook when you're a trails guide. If you have an encounter with an ostrich, you can write it down next to a leopard or lion or buffalo. I still haven't met an individual person who's done that, because it's quite embarrassing to say I had a dangerous encounter with an ostrich. But they can be quite vicious if they have chicks or eggs and you try and approach them. So that would be the only South African bird that I know of that would be quite aggressive. But lapwings, the crowned lapwing and the blacksmith lapwing, if you are walking in an area where their eggs are, I mean in Johannesburg, on all the golf courses, the golf areas up there, the crowned lapwings are very, very, very noisy and very aggressive towards golfers, because the golfers are walking towards their very camouflaged, concealed nests on the ground. I mean, there's footage of elephants being turned aside by a very sort of, what's the word, deliberate approach by a crowned lapwing as it just dive bombs his head, and the elephant eventually goes, okay, fine, and off it goes. And blacksmith lapwings can be the same. So on the notes of aggressive birds, I don't think the word aggressive is right. It's more protection, and protection of youngsters. Any adult would be like that with their babies. We're going to be going up to Jamie with an individual who's making a nest.
I don't think I've ever known of hammerkorps to be aggressive toward people, but I will add the myna bird to the list of aggressive birds, because I spent an entire year, morning everyone, being attacked by a flock of myna birds at my home in Johannesburg, because I did them the disservice of rescuing one of their babies out of the swimming pool, and they never ever forgave me for it. Obviously they thought I'd attacked them. But there's our hornbull, no, hammerkorp, that's the bird. Sorry, there's, of course, because I want to show you this, there's a whole load of vehicles trying to squeeze past me as I block up the entire one-way bridge. Morning. I don't know about you, but I don't feel... Just wait for the cars to come past. I don't feel as though this nest has progressed all that much, but maybe it's like watching a puppy or a kitten grow up. Or a child, I suppose. You don't realize they're growing until you get a 35-kilogram dog all of a sudden. Perhaps it's like that. It's a slow process. Oh, look at this, look at this. Oh, No! The Egyptian geese... Oh! Oh my goodness. Somebody told me they'd seen Egyptian geese resting in this nest. They're taking advantage of the hammerkorp's work, and the hammerkorp is furious. Listen to it screeching. Oh, no, this is not on. Squatters' rights. Nonsense. We've just seen how hard these hammerkorp have worked. Oh, shame. Come on, chase him away. Chase him away. This is a nice nest for me. I think I'll take it. I don't think I've ever been so heartbroken in my life before. This explains so much about why these hammerkorp aren't always here. These Egyptian geese are checking out the nest site because one of the other guides told me that I was wrong about it being a hammerkorp nest and it was an Egyptian goose nest. Oh dear. A battle of the species. Where's the second hammerkorp? Come on. Where have you got it? Oh, come on, come on. Come and back your friend up, your mate up. This just will not do. That's it. Show that goose. Oh, here's a metaphor for life if I've ever seen one. I'm absolutely outraged. Of course I can't be because... No! Don't chase them back. It's their nest. Oh, sorry. Tractor coming through. Morning. This is really devastating. And of course, this is a situation where yesterday we spoke about anthropomorphizing animals and the fact that you can't use it to make bad guys out of animals. But I'm really sorry, this goose right now is the bad guy. Or girl. Oh, and he stood all over the wall of your nest, and those big clumsy goose feet damaged it. Oh, I'm so sorry, hammerkorp. What a thing to have to deal with. Not only does it take months to build the nest, now you've got to deal with this lot moving in. Almost equal in size, but not quite. And unfortunately, I don't think the hammerkorps quite have the same bulk of the Egyptian goose. Where's that second one gone? The second goose. Don't know where it went. Oh, there it is. Well done, Craig. There we go. There's the second Egyptian goose. Could that be a conscience down there? Could it be? Perhaps not too comfortable with what its mate's doing? I doubt it. I just don't think there's that much space for all the birds. Mr. Q wants to know, could the hammerkorps not stab the Egyptian goose with their beaks? Oof, now we're getting into the realms of... one goose has flown away. Is the second one going to follow? Come on, off you go. But yes, we could be ending up in the realms of bird murder. No. They will dive bomb it, I think, if it tries to shuffle right into the nest itself. But I don't know just how much they would stab it. But you're right, hammerkorps have bills that are designed for catching fish, and they are very capable of spearing things. But it risks injury because, remember, the geese also have very powerful claws and also the potential to peck quite severely. Those of you who've been attacked by geese, I think, will know all about that. I can't remember who it was who shared the story of being bitten on the bottom by a goose, but it's not a terribly pleasant experience. The standoff. No, no, no. It is not yours. You just look full of mischief, don't you? Never have I known an Egyptian goose to look so sinister, seen through the eyes of stealing a nest site from the hammerkorp. PT Watcher, if I were to sort of work out what's been going on. I think this has been a process. I think these Egyptian geese constantly come and try their luck with the hammerkops. I don't think they're going to abandon their nest yet, but I'm not sure. I don't think so, though. If they are constantly harassed, yes, go away. Off you go. Go on, you're thinking about it. Off you go. If the Egyptian geese constantly harass them, I guess it is possible that they might abandon this nest. It might be why we don't see them every day or every morning. Or perhaps they just take regular work breaks, I'm not sure. Perhaps they belong to a union. I really am not 100% sure. Aww. No, you can't even both work at building the nest because one of you's got to make sure this goose doesn't move in. Oh. Whoever thought we would see hammerkops as such a sympathetic character? All that hard work. No, we just cannot happen. The hammerkops must fight back and protect. Ah, yes, there we go. Shoo, shoo. Look what you're doing to their nest. Now you've walked all over it. Steve, you say you never thought... Yes, there we go. Intimidation. Come on, it's not always about size. Trust me, I know. Sometimes it's all about having a bigger bark. Oh, look at this! Throw away! You ever think you'd see a fight between an Egyptian goose and a hammerkop? Because I didn't. Steve says he never thought he'd be this invested in a bird's nest. Oh, goodness. Oh, and off in their separate directions, the goose has flown away. And the nest is free from squatters. And our hammerkop is right in front of us, just here. You don't know I'm applauding you, but I feel better for it. Well done, hammerkop. I'm so oddly elated that is the way that this worked out. Now they've got to go back and fix their nest up. Oh my goodness, what a morning. These little dramas that play out in the animal kingdom if you just have the patience to spend a bit of time double-checking a nest. Who would have thought? Well, I can safely say that was not what I expected to see this morning. I expected to see more of the building process and the male undoing what the female had done and vice versa. You see the barring on the hammerkop's tail there. Don't often get to see that. Yes, put those feathers back in place. What a Monday morning. Ruffled feathers all around. I know that feeling. Well, folks, those of you facing a Monday morning, could be worse. Oh, interesting question, Ian. Are hammerkops related to herons? I don't think so. I don't think they're in the same family, but they might... You see, if I were going to go with a close relative, I would have said heron as well. Something like a greenback night heron, or one of the smaller herons, a squacko or something like that. They do certainly have a similarity. I don't think they belong to the same family, though. I could be wrong about that. I confess to not knowing the taxonomic breakdown of every single bird we see out here. I know James was doing a talk on the swallows yesterday on the sunset safari. I have absolutely no idea which family it belongs to. I can find out relatively quickly. It shouldn't be too hard. There we go. It's okay. Those horrible geese have gone. That was so clearly a system where you could take sides. Okay. So, well, our hammerkop sorts out his feathers and calms himself down and returns to his nest site. He's having a hard morning, but the hippos with Noel are having a much better time of things.
We have some feisty little hippo action that's happening here just on the side of Chitwa Dam. So we are able to sit here just in the corner as we're not going to disturb anybody. We've had a nice little look for Hasana around. We're going to do it again as well. But as we came up, this mum and her youngster have been, well, it looks like mum and youngster have been playing around with each other. It could also just be an older sibling. It's like Ring Around the Rosie for hippos. Absolutely hysterical. And then just to the side, you've got two little ones there that are busy playing. Oh my goodness. Okay, we're going to get some good action here. There we go. That smaller one is using the dead tree as a sort of resting space. We see this often with young elephant bulls when they're busy playing, and they'll put a tree in between them just to give themselves a break. This lighting is really nice. It's harsh in the background, but on the water, it's beautiful. Mrs. Mint, you want to know if the hippos enjoy blowing bubbles underwater? And Mrs. Mint, I don't know if they enjoy it, but it does happen from time to time. What a novel thought. I think we could say yes, but I don't think it's the same as us. Can we hear them splashing around? There, they're laughing. Lovely. Now, we've been driving around as well, tracking some elephants, and I can actually see some elephants coming from about our 10 o'clock. Now, I believe one of them is possibly going to be that young bull that we saw earlier. But then in the far background, I can see some more, and there we go. So it's going to take them a few minutes to get down here. So I think we're going to postpone our little hunt for Hasana for now, and I think we're going to hang out just here on our little dip on the northern side of the dam wall. Let's see what sort of action we can find. Now, we talk often about animals playing. There's a really great documentary called When Dogs Smile and Chimpanzees Cry, and it's about animals and emotion. Now, I'm not saying that we must anthropomorphize animals. I think it's very different, but, you know, when we're talking about mammals, and we're also a mammal, and we're talking about mammals with sort of higher brain function, play is part of an emotive state to a point, and a lot of the play that you're seeing here is them enjoying themselves and enjoying the temperature, and then also just sort of getting ready for being larger adults. So, and notice as well, a lot of the play that we were seeing before is mouths are open and they're splashing around, but they're not actually hurting each other. It's all about the movements and learning how to jockey around each other. See how she's sort of teaching him how he must move. Ravenlock, you're noticing that hippos tend to be very protective of their space and their young. Ravenlock, I would fully agree with your astute comment there. They're very protective, and that has a lot to do with the fact that they live in an area, well, particularly here, we'll just talk about the sort of Djuma, Sabi Sands area. They live in an area that has very small bodies of water and then large areas of land, and their comfort area is in the water. And so they have to make sure that their space that they've found, like here at Chitwa Dam, remains their space, which can be tricky and difficult, especially if there's a chance for other hippos to move in. And you'll notice that certain parts of the different pods, like certain sides of the dam more than other sides, and I would definitely say that there are parts that are more well suited and possibly better areas, and so they just want to make sure that they stick to those better areas. Jacqueline, good question. How long do hippos live for? All right, well, a rhino is about 40 to 45 years. An elephant is about 65 years, 60 to 65. A giraffe's about 18 to 20. A buffalo is about 20 to 23. So I would put hippos around 15 to 20 years. That would be my guesstimate off the top of my head that I'm thinking of just now. So all of those other ones that I was naming are there large ungulates. So an ungulate is a hooved animal, or a pachyderm, or a near ungulate. There's many different terms. And a lot of it has to do with foot structure. It's interesting, the pachyderms, the whole idea behind pachyderms with thick skin, that's part of it. But proper pachyderms, or the proper classifications, I should say, around some of the larger mammals in our area actually deals with foot structure. So a near ungulate would be something like a rhino, where it's not quite a hooved animal, but it's not quite not a hooved animal. And then hippo foot structure is very similar to a rhino's foot structure, but then it's also quite different as well. And then it has a little bit to do with their internal digestion as well. Zach, you'd like to know if these are different species of hippo. So this species of hippo, Zach, and the hippo that we see in the Mara with Jamie are going to be the same species of hippo. And then there is a pygmy hippo that is up, I believe, in the Congo somewhere, that should be a subspecies. They might have reclassified it as its own species, but as far as I know, it's still a subspecies of this hippo. And Zach, as far as I know, hippos only occur in Africa. Their cousins, long-term cousins, would be whales and dugongs, which occur, and manatees, dugong and manatee, which occur obviously in the water all around the world. But I cannot think if there are hippos on any other continent. I truly think it's just here in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. Everybody's starting to quiet down a little bit. We had a lot of tracks of the hippos as we came in. They've been traveling farther afield to find food. Ooh. Yeah, I think let's head on over to Scott. Let's see what he's up to. I'm hoping he finds Tondi at some point. And maybe let's ask Scott if he thinks he's ever heard of hippos on another continent. But I'm pretty sure it's sub-Saharan Africa, so let's go over to him.
Yes, Pablo Escobar had some hippopotamus, and they certainly weren't in Africa, but he took them there from here. Those are the only ones I know of. You also get pygmy hippos, which would be an awesome animal to see. I think they live in and around kind of Central Africa. I'm not too sure exactly. And they, I think, are also endangered. So imagine seeing a tiny little pygmy hippopotamus, how cool that would be. Now, as you can tell, we are sneaking very slowly through quite a thick area. We've lost Tundi's tracks. And what's kind of further confused us is that one of the vehicles that was helping us in this area by driving around the roads, they linked ahead of us and found some other leopard tracks who they assumed to be Tundi's. And when we got there, both Herbie and myself thought, oh, these tracks just don't look right. They look a little bit too big. Possibly Tumba, possibly Hosanna, a young male. Not 100% sure, we could be wrong. It could in fact be Tundi's tracks. It was just one set of them crossing the road, which made it a little bit tricky as opposed to walking down the road for at least a kind of a decent period of time for us to analyze those tracks. So we're doing a big loop around and heading back to where we did last have her actual tracks, and there we'll get on our hands and knees and hopefully find out which direction she actually moved in. Sky, you'd like to know if I think Tundi is moving her cub quite a bit for hunting purposes? It's hard to tell. It could be that, it could be the fact that yesterday some lions walked past quite close to her den in the morning, early hours of the morning. We didn't see them, but we did see their tracks. Then yesterday afternoon, Hosanna, a young male leopard, was in the area. Both of those animals are threats to her cub. So I'm guessing it could be that, or it could simply be that the cub is getting big enough now to move with her, and now she's looking for kind of fresh hunting grounds, possibly. Lots of good hiding places in this area for her to stash her cub. But yeah, I do think it's going to be in our best interest to go back to those last tracks and really kind of scratch around and work out where she's gone. For those of you who've spent a bit of time with us, you'll know full well that quite often when we're following leopards, they zigzag. They don't just head in one direction necessarily. So it could be that she's changed direction again, just like she changed direction from an easterly movement to a southerly movement off that road a little bit earlier. Very good. We're going to send you back up to the Masai Mara with Jamie and some elephants.
Okay, so while Tundi zigzags, we have taken to the elephants in order to recover from the drama of the Hammerkop nest invasion. I think we all needed a breath of fresh air after that. So we've got some little elephants playing just to remind us of the wonderful things in the world. Well, they were playing. Now, of course, because I want to show them to you, they've all calmed down. A group of about 4 little ones, ranging in age from just over 6 months or so, dashing about like little maniacs. This is a wonderful time of day to see elephants because it's not too hot yet, so they are full of the joys of the morning and racing backwards and forwards, and of course, as I said, that they all bunch together, but that's okay as well. A peaceful family scene. Yeah, females completely tolerant, patient with the youngsters as they go about their nonsense. And this is usually where we see them chasing egrets around as well. Oh, look at this one. I know this. Oh, cute. There's more little ones than I even realized. There's loads of them. All around a similar age. There's the instigator in the back, the oldest one. Emboldened by the worship and attention of the 2 little ones. Much like children. All know when you put young kids together, the eldest one usually takes the lead because the 2 little ones will follow behind. Oh, what? They've lost one. Lost a follower. Baby elephants are adorable. I think that's pretty obvious. But I have to say, if you have to pick one feature about them that makes them as adorable as they are, it's got to be the trunk. Their ears are cute, their feet are cute, but their trunk wins the day on the cuteness scale. Especially because it's, for most of them when they're little, it's basically this big flappy thing on their faces that they can't really control. And the fact that baby elephants sometimes suck their trunks for comfort like a child sucks their thumb is a very endearing feature of them. Don't disappear into the long grass. Come on, you are full of nonsense. Have you tired yourself out now? A little bit of exhaustion kicking in. Behind them, of course, to orientate our regular viewers, that is the Samaki Swamp. And behind that is the Mara River. So we're sitting up in the sort of the northern part of the triangle. And what a spectacular morning it's been. Now, Rishi, you want to know if elephants only eat grass and plants? Plants, certainly. Only grass? No. And so they will eat leaves, they will eat bark, they will dig up tubers, they love fruit, There's certain fruit seeds, but yes, it is a herbivore-based diet. So they don't feed on meat. You'll find that with quite a few herbivores, they will supplement their diet occasionally with little bits of protein. You might find that the elephant eats the odd insect by mistake, but that's it. They are herbivores down to that last grass blade, and they have to be. That's the only thing that they could eat that would actually be able to sustain that size. And an ecosystem that is able to basically sustain itself when you've got massive animals feeding almost constantly, eating around about between 200 and 300 kilograms per day per individual. It has to be plants. There's nothing else they could eat that could sustain them. It would be utterly terrifying to imagine a carnivorous elephant. It'd be like something out of Jurassic Park. Although, can you imagine if we had dinosaur live safaris? We might all get eaten, though. That would probably, I hope, detract from the experience, but I'm not entirely sure about that. So no live dinosaur safaris, apart from the fact that they, would be impossible. But there are no carnivorous elephants. They do purely eat plants. What that means for the elephants is that they have to chew constantly. So the way that an elephant deals with chewing constantly is to replace its teeth. Oh, little baby was hungry. That's why it moved away from the others playing. It needs to constantly replace its teeth, so 6 sets of massive molars. The elephant will replace as it goes through, and as those teeth are worn down, the next set will come through until they reach the 6th set, and that's that. And they've worn it down and there's no more replacements, and they then eventually find themselves really struggling to survive because they can't chew. Which is why you can... it's difficult to say that you could tell an old elephant from their dung, but they don't digest their food as well as some of the young elephants. Look, there's other conditions to it as well. Oh, big stretch from the female there. This is the herd. Those of you who... I don't know if you remember this, but maybe you do. We finished off a sunrise safari with them walking right up to us. Now, all around Hana, we've spoken a bit about the drought in South Africa, and of course in Kenya, there was a terrible drought a couple of years ago that actually... Oh dear, I'm going to have to move. I'm sorry, that was inevitable. Let me just hold on all around Hana. I will get back to you in a sec. Let me just... I am very good at blocking up the road at the moment. There was a terrible drought that wiped out a massive percentage of the elephant population of Amboseli. Now, elephants are water dependent, I suppose you could say most animals are essentially water dependent. They need water in order to survive. Morning. So, now, the question was, how long can an elephant go without water? It depends, of course, on the search for an elephant. Search for an elephant? What on earth am I talking about? On the age of the elephant. And little ones will probably only be able to go a couple of days. If they're still suckling, that might sustain them for a while. The adult elephants will probably be able to continue for about a week. Bear in mind, we're talking about no water whatsoever. But they will also be able to obtain moisture from the food that they're eating, from tubers, from something like that, melons. You get elephants that do live in the desert, they know how to get themselves water. Oh, speaking of water, is it a little bit moist there, baby? Sinking into the ground. Oh, it's tough being an elephant when your family keeps taking you into the swamp. Yes, I think you'd probably see that, you'd probably find that a female could go, an adult female or an adult bull could go about a week without water, but that would be the point at which they'd be really very, very weak. Elephants drink every day, often twice a day, mostly twice a day where they can. Navigation's tough when you've got little legs. Luckily, Mom's so tall, otherwise you get lost in the grass. Isn't that beautiful? You can see Mom's got a crooked tail as well. Somebody probably stepped on her tail when she was younger, or grabbed at her tail. Something that caused that break in it. It's definitely a break. Long since healed, but will never be straight. Yes, well, if you put yourself under your mom's tail, you're going to find yourself with bristles in your eye. The hair on the end of their tails, for those of you who've never, and I assume that's a fair amount of you, have never had the opportunity to feel what an elephant's hair feels like. It feels like wire. It is so bristly. Now, Zach, you want to know if elephants will ever have more than one youngster. Twins are very, 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 very rare, but they do happen. Triplets, I've never heard of triplets happening in the wild. And I would go so far as to say it would be next to impossible for an elephant to carry 3 babies for 22 months without some kind of medical intervention. I can't imagine that they would be able to give birth to 3 healthy babies. But I could be mistaken about that. One should never make any guarantees where nature is concerned, because nature does strange things. But I've never heard of it happening. I do know that there are some rare recorded cases of twins, though. Ah, the land of pastels strikes again. I would try and move forward, but I actually can't now. Can't really change our perspective. It's okay though. It's very beautiful. So while we watch the peaceful elephants, I think feeling completely and utterly unthreatened this morning, let's go back across to South Africa, where Noel has found an Inyala that doesn't know quite how lucky it is.
Yeah, this Nyala definitely doesn't know how lucky he is. We're sitting here down in Hasana's hunt, and we were just about to go, and we've got a squirrel that is up on our southwestern side that is going completely nuts. You know how I all feel about squirrel calls in the Lowveld area. Sometimes it's for a leopard, and so I swear they sometimes just do it because they can. But because we're busy looking for Hasana, and this Nyala, although it's drinking, does keep looking up in the direction of where the squirrel is calling, we're just giving it a minute and seeing if we can end up seeing anything. Oh no, that was grass moving in the background. So this Nyala bull, this is Hasana's hunt. We're in a really good position. You can actually see the whole area. There's water down in here. There's lots of cover. There's big trees. There's thick shrubs. And that Nyala will enjoy an area like this, but he'll also move into areas that are a little bit more open. Lots of good eating for him down here, and it's quiet. Fits in with his habitat preferences quite nicely. We also tend to see a lot of bushbuck that are down here, a cousin of the Nyala. Our squirrel seems to be quieting down a bit, and that could be because whatever was bothering him has moved on. I'm not seeing hide, nor hair, nor tail of little Hasana. We aren't still busy sort of peeking and checking and looking. So I think what we're going to do is we'll head back up towards the dam and then towards the northern side of the dam and go have a look at those elephants. I know Jamie's been having some wonderful elephants up in the Mara, but maybe we need some South African elephants. They are the same species, but who knows, maybe they speak in different accents. So let's carry on and go and have a look there. I was also having a look for our greater painted snipe, but I'm not seeing him today. Always enjoy that bird. It's a very, very special bird. Our elephants were very, very busy in this area. And as we come through and I get a little bit of height, I'm just checking behind us into the corner. Tony, you're curious to know how are the elephant numbers in the greater Kruger area. Tony, the majority consensus is that it's overpopulated, but it's not as badly overpopulated as the northeastern side of Botswana or in other parts of Africa. So what's basically happening with the Ellie numbers is, here's Africa. Let's imagine Africa in our heads. I'm sorry I don't have a map. So sub-Saharan Africa. So instead of having elephants that are freely spread around like this, you get pockets that are everywhere, and those pockets are then confined by human habitation as well as lack of food sources, and so those pockets are overpopulated. So the elephant numbers in total are down. In the past decade, we've lost 60% of the entire population across the continent. But it's very important, it's very, very, very important to remember that just because we've lost that many, which is horrible, a lot of the areas where those elephants now are, those areas are overpopulated with them, and so that overpopulation actually degrades the ecosystem so that it's affecting other species of flora and fauna to the point where they're not going to be able to survive. So it's a very tricky situation that we find ourselves in. It is a situation that we have helped to cause. It's also a situation that some of the climate change has caused, and wherever you are on the boat with that one, it's tough. That doesn't mean that because their numbers are so low and because there's a poaching issue that we still don't need to do some management. We unfortunately do need to do some management with those populations, and then it's just coming up with the best ways to manage that. Now, I think if many of us had our way, just having a look around, sorry, many of us had our way, we would, sort of have more land and space for them. But something that we as humans also need to look at is one of the reasons why species like elephants are having issues with their population is because we're not keeping our population under control. Our little elephant bull is now drinking, and the rest of the herd's coming down, so we won't need to go too far. I'm going to go park here in our spot that we had earlier, and we're going to get a really nice view of everybody coming down for a drink. I'm going to sneeze, sorry. Excuse me. Sorry about that. It's that funny time of the year where it's really, really hot one day and then really cold one day and then really hot one day and then really cold, and so it leads to a bit of sniffles. I'm just going to angle us in nicely in our little nook, and then we're gonna get a nice expanse of everything. Oh, that herd coming down is really wonderful. They're going from marula tree to marula tree. Also, with elephant populations, it's a very hard one because elephants tend to be a species that we as humans connect to with our hearts and our emotions as opposed to with our logical brain. And so a lot of the conservation practices that are going to need to happen in the future with them are going to be very difficult emotionally for a lot of us. So we have to remember the greater good and everything works in balance, and then there's people who study their whole lives to be the ones that make these decisions, and they're not always correct, but they do try their best. Especially in South Africa, we've got a really great conservation community that works really hard to keep everything in balance as best as possible. So here they are, clustering around their marula trees, picking up their marula fruits. Remember the other day we were chatting about, for those of you that get a chance to watch us every day, we were chatting about how during marula fruiting season they zigzag quite often, and they rush from marula fruited tree to another marula fruited tree, and then they eat as many fruits as they can fit into their bodies, and then they carry on, and they keep doing that for a good portion of the day. It's a really beautiful scene we have going on now. Now everyone, don't forget you're on a very special journey with us because you are live with us in South Africa and the Masai Mara, unless Jamie's in the Mara Triangle, which is connected to the Masai Mara. We are with you, and everything we do you see. So don't check this little one down here, Dobby. Sorry, he's chasing the water buck. So you can interact with us while we're live out here, and you can do that by sending questions or comments, #SafariLive on Twitter or through the YouTube chat. We've got a cheeky young little elephant bull who's still attached to the herd but has decided he doesn't want to be too close to Mum today, and he's come down for a drink, and then he's decided that the water buck are infringing upon his space and he feels like chasing them off a bit. See the very stiff ears and a half stiff tail, head's raised a little bit. He's busy watching them and keeping an eye on them. And our clouds are starting to go away, so we're getting some really beautiful light that's coming through. Now he's debating, is he going to chase them again, or is he going to go up to Mum? There he comes. See how he's moving his foot like that? That's part of the decision he's making on which way to move his body. Now we've seen this before with larger elephants, so you can tell that this is something that their thought process works through from a young age up into old age as well. That turning of the shoulder and lifting of the front arm. So remember, elephants don't have 4 legs, they have 2 arms and 2 legs. Hippos are laughing at the elephants. And I think he's using this termite mound now to sort of hide behind. He might burst out from the side, or he might carry on up to the others under the marula trees there. We'll just have to wait and see. And there's been a lot of elephant activity down by the dam this past night. I can tell by the dung and the tracks around. It also smells of elephants really heavily right now. Very musky, fruity elephant smell. Alright, now Scotty D is busy tracking our lovely Tundi leopardess. So I think let's head on up to him and see what sort of update he has for us, and we will wait for all of these Ellies to come down and have a nice drink.
We certainly do have an update for you guys, and it's a good one. We are back on the trail of Tundi and her cub. I'm quite surprised at how far this little cub has been following her mom, and her tracks appear to veer off the road here. She was temporarily on a road, which made our lives easy in finding her. Here we can see the back pad. Not very easy to see the toes in front, so not really easy to see too much due to the fact that there's a cloud that's blocking the sunshine, and without any shadows being cast on the kind of edges of the track, it becomes very difficult to actually see them. So we would actually prefer if the sun popped out again, but the tracks do kind of veer off in this direction onto a little pathway here. So Herbie's just staying on the road just to make sure she doesn't cross back in the opposite direction, and we'll slowly creep along this little pathway that she evidently veered off on, trying to see tracks as and where the sand allows us to. You get some areas where the sand's been churned up and made soft, and other areas where it's still quite hard. Let's take this area for example. I've just made a big step on the ground there, and not easy to see too much of my track. So it gives you an idea of just how tricky it can be, especially when just tracking, well, in this case, two animals, one of which has got a very small footprint. But we'll just slowly make our way through here. It's also one of the things I often forget to do when on the trail, is you get so fixated on looking down that you could overlook something and forego seeing a leopard. Like here, there's so many nice big trees up ahead of us where, had she have made a kill, she could have stashed it and could spot her up there. So good to always just check around. Guide monkey, you've noticed that I found a feather in my cap, and yes, I did. I'm going to hold it against my shirt here so that the contrast is quite nice. And isn't that a beautiful iridescent blue? I'll just swivel it ever so slightly to try and catch different angles of sunlight on it, and it'll probably show up quite differently as I swivel it from side to side. This, I'm guessing, is from a Burchell starling, one of the beautiful iridescent birds that we get here. Good. Good luck, feather. It will lead us to Tundi and her baby. Okay, so now I can see Herb's making his way back in our direction, which is a good sign. Oh, yeah, we've got a track right here. What a bonus. Again, not easy to see, but you can just see the back pad over here, and 1, 2, 3, 4 toes. And it's just the odd clue like this that we hope to find to keep on her trail. Wunderbar. Herb, I've got one track here. Okay, well, it sounds like this morning everyone's having luck with elephants except for us, and Steve has now bumped into another herd of elephants which are also drinking.
Yes, folks, we were on our way to go and help Scotty D find potentially Tundi, who's eluding them somewhere in the block, and on our way we bumped into a really big herd of elephants, and we kind of surmised their direction and their route and their intention. So we've come and we've staked out Buffelshoek Dam. We have one of the landowners, Bernie, from the north, who's here as well, and the elephants are just pouring out of the bushes now. I haven't given them a head count yet, but there's already more than 20 down here by the river, and they are still coming. We saw them before. There was a huge amount of them, and they are moving with purpose in this direction. So when you understand the terrain and the topography, you can actually plan this sort of event. You don't have to follow them through the thick bush. You can kind of figure out, okay, cool, they're thirsty, they're moving in a direction, they're not feeding. It's obvious they're going straight to the pub. I know that look on my brother's face when he is thirsty for the pub. It's a very obvious look. My dad is the same. And if you understand that, then you know you don't have to follow him. You can just go the quick way around and go straight there and meet him on the way, if that makes any sense to any of you. And here we have the smallest of little babies on the dam wall, Seb. Can you see him? He's about to come down. There's a very little one with Mom. Watch him navigate the slope. Oh, it's too precious. Oh, it's too precious. You did so well. Did so well. Oh, this is wonderful. Michael asks a question I don't have the answer to. He says, do elephants experience something similar to dementia? I'm not sure. I know that they are very intelligent animals, but I don't know, Michael. They seem to stay in the herd their whole life. They seem to be looked after. Whether they forget things or not is hard to say. It's a very good question. Wonder if one of the other presenters might have an answer to that, but I've never heard anything like that in elephants. I don't know how you would study it either. This is wonderful shots. We also, on our way here, we had tracks of what seemed to be the mating pair heading west on the fire break from where we are now. But we thought that this would be more entertaining to see initially, and then we can also go and follow up on those tracks soon. We'll keep our ear to the ground and hear what Scotty's up to with Herbie, if they've had any luck. But the Ellies are still coming out of the bushes. I'm not sure how many there were, but it's possible it's the same herd Scott saw yesterday. But it's hard to say. I saw an individual with a collar. I wonder if any of you saw a collared individual yesterday. She's probably still coming. I know that in the 90s, after the controversial culling debate was put to rest, there was big research that was put into elephants, and companies like Save the Elephants, they are in Kenya as well as in South Africa, and they collared a number of big males and also a number of matriarchs, and through those studies they're working out, because they're GPS collars, through those studies they're working out the home ranges of these elephants and how far they traverse. What are their sort of areas of preference? What's their seasonality? And also the bulls as well. And it's amazing the research that came forward of how breeding herds moved. A lot of the breeding herds that were found in these smaller private reserves before they were open to the Kruger seem to have matched their home range to that fenced-in area and haven't really migrated too much. But what we have seen in reserves as well, where they've dropped fences, I know Thorny Bushes just next to the Timavati has recently dropped its fence, and the elephants have moved straight in there for the